And good morning. Welcome. Thank you, friends, for joining us for what are we up to? Episode 5, I think, of the Wisdom of the Soul class. I'm enjoying myself, and I hope you guys are too. Uh, I'm going to announce some of the changes. One of them is we're going to be a little more prompt in starting the meditation near the top of the hour. And I have also, I want to make sure you got the handout material. Um, Somebody emailed me and said they couldn't find it. Attachments are usually at the bottom of a newsletter, and in this case, it was sort of in the middle. So if you did not get the handout, look at the newsletter from yesterday, and right in the middle, after the paragraph that says there's a handout attached, are three little right pointing carrots and then a PDF file you can click on. Let's do our opening focus. I'd like to do this in a couple of stages. Something called a welcoming and a centering, and then the actual short meditation. And again, a plug for short meditations. Mindfulness meditations are most effective when they are, and research has verified this, when they are at least 12 minutes and done at least every other day. To get any real benefit from meditation, according to research, and they just sat in on a webinar from Naropa University in Boulder, where this was confirmed the other day. At least 12 minutes, 12 to 15 minutes, 3 to 4 times a week. And you'll get benefit within 3 or 4 weeks. You'll notice the racing mind, the monkey mind calming down. But a 2-minute meditation, a 5-minute meditation, it's important to call yourself when the ego says to you, the persona nature says to you, oh, we don't have time to meditate. You're way too busy. It doesn't work anyway. You're no good at it. And all of those excuses that are offered up by the part of you that does not want you to meditate or figure out the truth of who you really are. Having said that, let's do the welcoming. And the way welcoming works is you gently focus on the way you feel right now, supported by the chair. You narrow your focus simply by forming the intention to come into the present moment. And it's called a welcoming because you welcome whatever you feel. Whatever you feel physically as the chair supports you. And feel the floor beneath your feet. Feet should be flat on the floor. Whatever you feel emotionally, take a moment to welcome it. Whether it's a pleasant and pleasurable feeling, or some discomfort, sadness perhaps, or some sort of strange funk that you find yourself in, welcome it anyway. You're not broken, you're not defective, you're not missing any parts or pieces. There are no wrong feelings, welcome them. Welcome your thoughts, even if they're still racing a little bit. Welcome them. And accept how you feel, what you think. And the fact that you've devoted this time is quite remarkable. I'd like you to acknowledge that for just a moment. That you've chosen to be here with all the demands on your time and so many other things you could be doing. You've chosen to be here. Essentially for two reasons, I presume. Because you benefit personally, and because that will help you to be of greater service to others. And having acknowledged that, close your eyes. Put your attention on the bottom of your nose and simply watch your body breathing itself at some fixed point on the bottom of your nose. Be curious about the fact that although you could at any time take a nice slow deep breath or hold your breath or pant, that most of the time your body breathes itself all by itself. And what a miraculous thing this is. As if you've never considered such a thing before. Adopt a beginner's mind. Not only curious, but fascinated that the body breathes itself. And you identify as the one who watches, not the breather. You can choose to be the breather for just a moment, and I'd like to suggest that we do this together. Inhale now, slowly through your nose, a nice big breath. Hold for a beat as you peak. And exhale just as slowly, and feel the letting go in your body as you breathe all the way out beyond where you'd normally stop. And let's do that 2 more times. Your own pace, in your own rhythm. Big breath in, pulling in strength and power. Wonderful letting go feeling from head to toe as you exhale all the way out. 1 more time, slow it down. And giving it all up, letting it go. And then let your body take over and breathe itself. Imagine that your little pinpoint of awareness in the bottom of the nose. And much like sitting on the shore of the beach and watching the waves, you simply observe the ebb and flow of your body breathing itself. The watcher, not the breather. Simply witnessing without judgment. There are no good breaths or bad breaths. It's not possible to breathe in a way that is right or wrong. Everything is fine, just as it is. Allow yourself to experience that feeling that everything's okay. Right here and right now, There's nowhere else you need to be. Nowhere else you'd rather be. Nothing else you need to be doing. But comprehending your existence as one who watches the breath. And let that be enough for now. The miracle of life in every breath. The joy of existence. For no reason. In every moment. Affirm that you care, that you are a loving being. Understand that love to come from peace. And imagine gently radiating it from the core of your being, in the area of the heart, throughout your body, allowing your body to be filled with the warmth of peace and love and joy for no reason. Other than that you exist. And imagine releasing, letting go, such that that peace and that love radiates out, filling your home, your neighborhood, and your community. That others may somehow be influenced by this peace and this love. Radiating out such that it embraces the world. And is experienced somehow, quite magically and mystically, by those who are afraid, for whatever reason. Those who are confused and uncertain, may they know this peace and this love. This kind, gentle, and caring nature. And in particular, the war-torn areas of the world. The areas of extreme poverty, where people are food insecure and walk for miles just to get water. Imagine even the rich and powerful, the power brokers, the billionaires, and those in positions of great influence and power, being influenced by this peace and love. But their awareness, their understanding may expand as well. Into the corners of the universe. Feelings you can bring with you back into the room as you reorient yourself. Again, feel the chair supporting you and the floor beneath your feet. Remember the room in which you sit. Remember this class and why you came here. And when you're ready, take a nice, slow, big breath. Again, pulling in strength and power. Inhale now. Hold as you peak, and as you exhale gently, feel a letting go feeling, and open your eyes, wide awake and alert, back in the room, feeling fine, wide awake, feeling better than before, wide awake and alert. Okay, wonderful. Today I'd like to continue our conversation about the mental, emotional, and physical nature, particularly emotional intelligence, which we never learned in school, no matter how much education we may have received, no matter how many degrees we may have. It's a fairly new field. It's a field that emerged with research in the 1980s. And of course, there's a groundbreaking book from 1995, simply called Emotional Intelligence by Daniel Goleman. No G. I'm sorry, no D. A G, but G, but no D. Not Goldman, like the metal, but Goleman, Goleman. Daniel Goleman, Emotional Intelligence, sort of the primer of all the emotional intelligence work that followed. And this came out of positive psychology, which really began in the 60s. After years of abnormal psych and studying mental illness and running rats through mazes, somebody decided maybe we should take a look at healthy, happy people and see what they're doing. And that led to the whole human potential movement, personal development, and one would say transpersonal or spiritual development as well. So we opened a few weeks ago by looking at this cosmic or divine Trinity, which in religion, Christianity in particular, we know as Father, Son, Holy Spirit, recognized as Father, Son, and Mother, and ideally as spirit, consciousness, and matter, or energy, awareness, and mass. They prefer Einstein's approach. And the lower correspondence to that we're suggesting is the mental, emotional, and physical nature. And again, the order is important. So, Hannah, if we can do a share screen and look, first of all, just at this chart. This is a simple way, thank you. This is a simple way of looking at the relationship of these two trinities. We always think of the divine trinity in a vertical sense. Most people, I presume, do. We think of, maybe it's a Von Daniken Chariot of the Gods thing, that we think of the gods as living in the sky. Humans always have. And monotheism, the one God, must live in heaven up there somewhere. And Earth, though we now have a sense of an entire universe, not merely the planet Earth, is down here. And in the middle, we have the concept of the soul. And in past classes, we've referred to this as the one, the group, and the many. And the magic's always in the middle, the secret's always in the center. The idea that the soul is, the soul is the consciousness or the love aspect, or you can think about this center element in the vertical Trinity as being like the magnetic field in a bar magnet that unifies what might appear to be opposites. Like the North Pole and the South Pole of the bar magnet is made whole by the magnetic field. And there's no place on the bar magnet or in the field around it that is not influenced by both polarities, positive and negative. And so too, the soul is both spiritual and material, don't you see? Christ was often referred to as the Son of God and the Son of Man. The bothness of the middle is important. And so it's often said that it's love, the soul, the consciousness in the middle, that allows unity to express itself as diversity without being diminished, without being less than whole. And so paradoxically, which is true? Are we all from one source, or are we many unique individuals? Well, yes and yes. Both things are true, though paradoxical. This is sometimes called the confluence of opposites, and I think I mentioned this before. It bears repeating. Imagine someone standing on a hill, and there's a road running up the hill, and he's trying to decide whether the road runs uphill or downhill. Someone comes along and they have a great argument. It's a uphill road. No, it's a downhill road. And, like two sides of the same coin, it's still one thing. Humans have a problem with this. Duality is big, either or, right or wrong, gender, male or female. And then you can see on the horizontal, you want to bring that back? Yeah, thanks.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. You can see on the horizontal, we have a similar correspondence of the mental and the emotional and the physical. And it also suggests that the portal or the doorway from our existence as human beings, having a mental, an emotional, and a physical nature, is not through the head. You can't think your way to an understanding of the cosmos, not in terms of physics, not in terms of metaphysics, not in terms of quantum physics, or spirituality, or philosophy, or esotericism. You always have to go through the heart. Isn't that interesting? It's a feeling. Love is a feeling. It's so much more than that. I'm going to have a handout for you in a week or two on the qualities of love, the qualities of consciousness, and they are many. It's not just awareness. It's much more. And also have another handout today that we'll spend a little time with on the difference between thoughts and feelings. And that's why I wanted to show you this, because, again, emotional intelligence means we have to learn to understand feelings without thinking about them. You can let go of this screen share now, Anna. I'm sure you've noticed that when you think about a feeling, you sort of spin your wheels. You don't get very far. And there are even some linguistic tricks that we play that counselors and therapists have to be aware of, because people will say, well, I feel this way because, and go to a thought. Or I feel like, and then they go to a mental construct. And it's pretty rare for somebody to say, I feel, followed by actual emotions. Names like, I feel lonely, I feel sad. Especially in couple counseling, we get, I feel like you, I feel like you always, I feel like you never, I feel like you're the one. Just because you put I feel in front of a thought doesn't make it a feeling, does it? It's still a thought. So today I thought we would spend some time, and this will probably, I'm sure, in fact, spill over into next week, because I want to be better about getting to questions at the top of the hour. And I think Hannah's suggestion, which we'll revisit in 30 minutes, is a good one, that you formulate your question by typing it in the chat box, even if only for your own benefit. And I'm going to be more brief and concise in my answers and less conversational with you. I'll check in and see if you understand, but I'd like to get to more questions and more dialogue and more conversation. And eventually, a few weeks in, and as we grow this class, that's another thing I wanted to talk to you about. I'd like to begin to grow the class now that we have a sense of who we are and what we're doing. We're all feeling pretty safe here now. So if you want to invite your friends, please do so. Like-minded people that you know would be amenable to this stuff. And just suggest that they email me at awmysteryschool@gmail.com. So AW for Ageless Wisdom, awmysteryschool@gmail.com, so that I can get their email and do a little brief exchange with them and get them on the email list. And you could give them the link as far as that goes, but I'll provide that. And I'm going to start putting notices in the general email that goes out. And we'll see, maybe at some point even mention it on the podcast or the radio. I would like to grow the class. And so in addition to speeding up the whole Q&A process, like to do some breakout groups too. But at the beginning, we still got to lay the foundation. And it'll all be on YouTube if you want to review. So we're getting more views on YouTube, twice as many views on YouTube as we have here in the class, so that's good too. But so Hannah, if you would, excuse me, I didn't have my coffee this morning, so I still got a little frog in my throat. Let me mute myself and give it a go. All right. Yeah, can you zoom in on this a little bit so I can see the scroll view? Because I'm not going to be able to read that as it is. This is a handout that thanks, perfect. This is a handout that I've been working on for some time. Oh, this is not the one I wanted. This is not the new one. Darn. Well, what am I going to do? This is the original. This is not the updated, but it's not wrong. Let's go ahead and use it. And then I'll figure out why that didn't go through the shared box that I use. Sorry about that. All right, so here we have distinctions, basic distinctions between thoughts and feelings. The amended version of this is going to include all of this, but a little more at the beginning about the nature of awareness or consciousness, the nature of intention and attention, a little bit about exactly what intelligence is, and then the distinctions between thought and feeling. So this is sort of the last 2/3 of the handout that it will eventually become, if that's clear. So let's read this together. First of all, thoughts are the mental activity of consideration and deliberation, whereas emotions are affective expressions and responses. Either can spontaneously arise from the unconscious or result from some physical experience. So we know thoughts and feelings are pretty closely related. Each can arise, and each can trigger the other. So often you'll see, if you Google it, this debate going on about which is primary, and it's always baffled me that someone would have to nail down, do thoughts create emotions, or, here's this duality again, or do emotions generate thoughts? Well, it's both. They trigger each other. And you can influence the way you think by managing your emotions, and vice versa. Change the way you think, it'll impact your feelings. A problem that we're going to have to address in understanding our emotions and being more emotionally intelligent is first to recognize that thinking about a feeling doesn't work. It's spinning your wheels. As I've already mentioned, we end up with, well, I feel that way because, and then I supply a thought. So we have to find an alternative to understanding emotions that's not cognitive, and or at least not analytical or logical, and that's intuition. Intuition is the language of emotion. That's how you determine the significance and the meaning of an emotional feeling. More on that later.
Michael,
Yes.
if you want to give me like 30 seconds, I may be able to pull up the updated one.
Okay.
So I'm going to stop the screen sharing and work on that for like a half a minute.
Well, let me, okay. Then let me develop what I just said and give you an example of the reverse, which would be using a feeling where you should be thinking. An example of that would be, silly though this may be, let's say you want to write a check. You need to write a check for, I don't know, $300. And you don't have your check register handy, and you can't go online and look at your online account for whatever reason. So you check in with how you feel, and yeah, there it is. That's it. Perfect. Thank you. And you end up saying to yourself, well, it feels like I have enough money in the account. I'm pretty sure I've got more than $300 in there. So, yeah, since it feels right, I'm going to go ahead and write the check. You can see what kind of problem that leads to. About 16 or 17 years ago on the old Stephen Colbert show, before he took over for Letterman, he did that parody of Bill O'Reilly, the Colbert Report. And he coined a word called truthiness to refer to something that actually I first noticed it in the Bush administration, where George Bush kept talking about his gut feelings, and he would trust his gut to make decisions about the world. The problem with truthiness is, and the definition of that, of course, is it must be true because it feels like it ought to be, right? Something is true because it feels like it ought to be. That doesn't work in the world. Emotions reveal yourself. They're subjective in nature. It's subjective intelligence. Your feelings are all about you. They tell you virtually nothing about the stimulus, about the person who triggered the feeling or the event or circumstance that causes you to feel the way you feel. Although that's what we tend to obsess on. He made me so angry I could just wring his neck, and she was so upsetting in her behavior. And so because of the nature of the fight or flight system being so survival oriented, we obsess on the stimulus and ignore the fact that an emotion is essentially a response. It's not about the stimulus. It's about me. Why are you angry? Why did that upset you? You see? It's sort of a love your enemy thing. What is that about? It's about asking, why are they my enemy? What am I doing to upset them? Why am I frightening them? Why does my presence scare them such that they've set themselves up to be a threat to me and I perceive them as an enemy? So thoughts, in the same way, tell you very little about you and everything about the world. That's what thoughts are for. Feelings tell you virtually nothing about the world and everything about you. So that's a little introduction to the difference between thoughts and feelings. Now that that we have the expanded, new, and improved version of this handout, let's go to the top and take this in order, and we'll eventually come back to this primary distinction about thoughts and feelings. Thoughts being objective. They're about the objects in the world. And emotions being subjective. And who's the subject in your life? That's you. It doesn't matter who made you feel that way. It's your feeling. And again, just as we can't use an emotion to can recover this check, emotions won't help you there just because it feels like you have enough money. And so trying to discern the meaning of an emotion with your thinking is a fool's errand. It's just not going to work, as I'm sure you've noticed. You're sad and depressed and you think and 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 think. And the depression just sits there. You don't learn anything about it. You're not understanding it. It's not getting resolved. Or just non-specific anxiety. Trying to understand, what am I worried about? Why am I so stressed? Why do I feel like I'm spinning my wheels and not getting any place? And we think and think and think and think. Well, what else are we to do, you might say? There's intuition. Intuition? Well, nobody ever taught me how to develop my intuition. It's not likely anyone ever did. That's high on my agenda. So let's look at the new and improved version of this handout here. First of all, this whole idea of consciousness and awareness. I must say that the debate rages on this distinction and whether there's a difference even between awareness and consciousness. Consciousness is usually discussed in terms of higher consciousness or lower consciousness. And awareness we think of as expanded awareness or constricted awareness. You might say lower awareness. But expanded awareness is higher consciousness and vice versa. And it's variable. Even in a given day, we can be more or less conscious, more or less aware. A classic example is sitting at the traffic light after it's already turned green. You're conscious, but are you aware? Someone could say, well, I'm aware, but I'm not conscious. Okay, they're pretty interchangeable terms, and I could give you half a dozen definitions of what conscious even means. Are you conscious when you're unconscious? Well, of course. Wait a minute, how could I be conscious when I'm unconscious? When you're asleep, aren't you unconscious? Yes. But is there still consciousness in the body? Yes, as evidenced by the dreams. Or arguably by the fact that the body is still breathing itself and the heart is beating and cells are being repaired and replaced and food is digested and the immune system is doing its thing. All quite well, even a little more efficient when you sleep, it appears. So while these terms are primarily interchangeable, and I want you to get used to using them, I will tell you that the man I mentioned a week ago, Nisargadatta Maharaj, he's very clear that awareness is fundamental and absolute, whereas consciousness is relative in terms of I'm conscious of this, but I'm not conscious of that. Couldn't we use awareness the same way? We could say, well, I wasn't aware of, or I am aware. But Nisargadatta, again, very credible source, not the only credible source, but I offer this for your consideration. He says awareness is the absolute, the fundamental. You don't have to, let me put it this way. If there was nothing to be conscious of, no bits or pieces or events or circumstances, if you were zero stimulus, right, like in a sensory deprivation tank, and there was nothing to be conscious of, you'd still have awareness. That awareness corresponds to the Godhead or the Absolute. In the beginning, there is awareness. And then consciousness is, oh, look at this thing over there that's not this thing over here. But again, many people will say, no, it's just the opposite. And I'm okay with that. I just want you to know that this debate rages. But for all intents and purposes, they're pretty much synonyms. They're pretty much synonymous. And the meaning that I've suggested here is to perceive, to notice, or realize that awareness is fundamental to existence. Intelligence, on the other hand, is the ability to organize awareness into understandable patterns. I like that. What is intelligence? Organizing all that you're aware of into patterns that you can understand. A way of getting a handle on things. Attention, there's three different types of attention, according to some of the best and most popular and credible research. There's a book called Peak Mind that's just recently come out that goes into the three types of attention. The first is selective attention. This is an orientation to content. Think of this as a spotlight or a flashlight. Selective intention as a form of attention is absolutely remarkable. It's just so amazing that you and I could go to a house party or a mixer. There's a big room with 100 people having, 35 different conversations, and standing at the doorway, simply by forming the intention, we can eavesdrop on one conversation 15 feet away. Listen to what's being said. You can even do this with your eyes closed. In fact, it might be easier with your eyes closed. Listen to this one conversation pretty much to the exclusion of the din and the noise of all these other conversations around you, right? Like you still hear them, but they fall into the background because your brain and your consciousness has this incredible ability to narrow in on one particular conversation. And then simply by changing your intention, maybe you hear somebody laugh over there and you go to the sound of that voice. And now you listen to that exchange pretty much to the exclusion of everything else. Or another version of this, and this is a nice exercise that I learned in music appreciation class a million years ago. I think in junior high school, took music appreciation. Listen to a tune, a song, a recording, and focus your attention on just one thing. Most people listen to lyrics. That's what they're focused on. And the other music sort of blends into this unified, harmonious background. But it's the vocal and the lyrics people are listening to. But let's say I'm a guitar player, so I'm going to listen to guitar riffs. I'm going to tune in. Maybe I'll listen to the rhythm guitar, and then there's a lead, and I go, oh, I'd love to learn to play that lead from Hotel California. Listen, I love it when that lead, Joe Walsh and Don Felder, isn't it? And Joe Walsh trade riffs in that guitar lead, that famous lead. And I still hear all the other parts. I hear the drums, and I hear the rhythm guitar behind them, and maybe there's some keyboards in there, I don't remember. But I'm focused on that. Or I could listen just to the bass line and pull that out, or just the keyboards, and you're still hearing the whole thing. That's an amazing ability that we have. It's really what the brain does. This is real important to understand. Research increasingly showing that the brain is a filter to prevent us from being overwhelmed by all that we could be aware of. Indeed, this is one of the effects of psychedelics. Remember the Beatle tune, It's All Too Much? It's like just not only do mundane things take on the appearance of extraordinary meaning on the psychedelics, but you're just overwhelmed by, colors have flavor to them, and sounds have color, and there's this, what's the word? I think it's called synesthesia, this cross-wiring of sense and sensation, and it's just, you're just streaming. There's so much going on because the psychedelic crosses the the blood-brain barrier, brain-blood barrier, and opens up these filters. It like kicks out the jams, and it's just more pouring in. So one of the primary functions of the brain, and it has many, and this is, quickly getting out of my field here. I'm not a neurologist, I'm not a brain scientist, but consciousness is much more than an epiphenomenon of brain chemistry. That's research is making that pretty clear. And so to consider, just to reflect on the idea that the brain is a filter and allows us to focus, gives us this wonderful ability to be selective in our attention. Uh, the second type of attention is the alerting system. This brings us into the present moment. And if selective intention is like the flashlight or the spotlight, then this alerting system is the floodlight. There's a hemisphere connection here too. The left brain is pretty deductive, general to specific. It's the flashlight. It likes to look at the bits and the pieces. Whereas the right brain likes to pull back and zoom out and look at the overarching concepts. So that's the floodlight. But that also allows us to be alerted if you're really focused in on something. And there's a loud noise, a bang, a boom, an alarm goes off, a siren goes down the street. Something gets your attention. There's a alerting system as well. That's a second type of attention.
That's ironic. Here's a little 5-minute alert, Michael.
Yeah, that's perfect timing. And C would be the executive function or the juggler. This is where we can put our attention on the future, on our goals, on achievements. This also allows for course correction. And again, is typically thought of as an executive function of attention. 3 kinds of attention. And again, I refer you to a new book called Peak Mind, if you want to pursue that. So let me touch quickly on mental and emotional intelligence, points 3 and 4, and then we'll go to some questions. So have your questions ready, formulated. Mental intelligence is ideation. That's a word that Plato used. I don't know if he coined it or not, but you can see the word idea in there. Excuse me. And mental intelligence includes conceptual abstraction as well as logical reasoning, learning, planning, imagination, creativity, critical thinking, and problem solving, decision making, of course. And as I mentioned before we got square on the handouts here, it is objectively oriented. Your mental intelligence is about understanding the external world. When you judge yourself, you get into trouble, right? We tend to be self-loathing and very critical. So use your intelligence to know the world, but not yourself. Emotional intelligence, whether it's attraction or aversion, oh boy or oh no. I feel positive feelings and I want to hold on, grasping, clutching, attachment. Attraction could be called attachment. Or aversion, stay away, that's repugnant. Oh, that's disgusting. Oh, I want nothing to do with that. Another way of looking at positive and negative emotions. And emotional intelligence refers to affect. Not affect, but affect, very similar word. And we'll just say that's influence. Emotional intelligence includes inspiration, which means, you see the word spirit in the middle of that? Spirit? Inspiration means to breathe into, to be inspired, right? Empathy, relationship management, and is subjectively oriented, revealing our conscience. Remember Jiminy Cricket? Values, ethics, and motives. And the four basic emotions are happy, sad, angry, and fearful. And sometimes people will say, no, there's really six. Researchers I'm talking about, six basic emotions. They add surprise and disgust to the list. And the way I remember these basic four I mentioned last week is the word shaft without the T, SHAF, sadness, happiness, anger, and fear. Okay. So that's as much of this handout that we'll do today. And we'll pick up. Boy, I'm glad we got that straight. Thank you, Hannah, for your efforts.
No problem.
We're learning to share a folder in the cloud.
I just downloaded it from your email.
Oh, well, we'll work it out. Okay, so Q&A.
So I'm supposed to do a little gentle segue into it and invite you to please put your questions in the chat box. I have several people have already sent me some questions, and you're also welcome to raise your hands. And Michael, did you want to say more on that, or you want me to just call on people and read their questions?
Let's begin with the people that have already written the question in the chat box, and if you would just call on them.
Okay.
Open their mic and speak up.
Okay, and I did get a chat asking where you should send the question. You can send it to, you should send it to me or to everyone. That's fine too. It might inspire another question. So the first one on the list is from Melinda, and Melinda, why don't you go ahead? I can read what she said is, I would like some insight into a revelation and a change in perspective I had yesterday. And I'll let her finish that.
Hi, Mindy.
Hey, my main motivation for never missing one of these classes is trying to manage my anxiety. And yesterday, I was going to go to a friend's birthday party at a hotel outside patio. And about an hour before I was to leave, I was filled with that familiar dread that just something's going to happen. You won't be able to breathe. You'll have pain in your back, and you won't be it wasn't even specific. It was just, well, anxiety and almost like a PTSD, that feeling coming back. And I came to realize, I think through your classes largely, that I wasn't afraid of what was going to happen at the event, because if I got short of breath inside or hurt myself, I would manage it, because I always do. And the anxiety is not going to prevent something from happening to me, but it almost felt like it was going to. If I stay revved up like that, I'll be immune to other things. It was just an odd revelation that I can drop that anxiety, because it's not going to prevent anything. And in fact, it's the fear of feeling the anxiety at the event that I was dreading. I actually almost canceled. And somehow this revelation came that if I worked on the anxiety through some short meditations and techniques that you gave, I could just go, and it was transformative, let me just say. So thank
Oh, sweet. Very nice. Yeah, couple of things. We have a bias that I think is hardwired into the brain. It's a survival fight or flight thing, that fear is a way of being careful. And fear triggers tension, tight muscles, which is a holding on response. So when fear occurs, we tend to hold on to the feeling. We often call it being stuck, or feel as if the fear is holding on to us, but actually we're holding on to it. And we then justify it and create a kind of a loop, because we tell ourselves, or maybe we just presume because it feels like this is a way to be careful, I'm being cautious. And if I allowed myself to feel safe, oh, that would be reckless. Then who knows what danger could occur to me, right? We need to remember we're not in that much danger anymore. For 3 million years we have been. We've been in grave danger all the time. And if you watch too much television, you could be convinced that, you know, danger is your friend. Danger is in the race memory. It's in our DNA. This fear of danger, rather, this presumption that our fear is about danger. I'll say it that way. So I've got to be careful. I've got to counsel my fear. And then we carry it around with us, part of our emotional baggage. And remember, every feeling that hurts, not just general non-specific anxiety, but every heartache, every bit of anger and frustration, every sadness, loneliness, even apathy. I don't feel anything. Numbness is fear-based.
you.
Right? So if it's not danger, what is it? It's unknown. And so the proper response, which I'm hearing you say, you're picking up on, is to acknowledge it, recognize it as an alert, merely an alert. The light on the dashboard of your car is not the problem. You don't ask the mechanic to fix the light. It's an indication of an issue under the hood. So it is with our fear and all of the emotions that hurt us. That's not the problem, that I'm angry, or that I'm depressed, or that I'm frustrated and confused. Those are symptoms of an issue that needs to be understood, that we need to discern. And again, logic is not going to help. Not very much. We get a little way with logic and reasoning, but we'll learn in this class to develop our intuition in relaxed states, and through the intuitive nature, expand our awareness, our comprehension, our perception, and our insight and our understanding of what this feeling is trying to communicate. So we need to welcome in the scariest of feelings, whether they're specific. I know what I'm afraid of. I'm afraid that I'm going to run into Joe, and he's such a jerk. And I'm thinking about canceling or whatever. Maybe, I'm going to have a panic attack. What causes panic attacks? The fear of having a panic attack.
Right.
It's that Roosevelt thing. The only thing you have to fear is fear itself. It's a feedback loop. It's like holding a microphone up to a PA speaker, and the sound of air turns into a scream. So welcome it in, just as we did at the top of the class today. Welcome anxiety, welcome stress, welcome fear by any name. From nervousness to something much bigger like horror or trepidation. And the thing about it is it's always a confusing blend that's hard to put your finger on. And so what do I mean by welcome? You do what you apparently did. You sit down, you breathe, you close your eyes and you relax. That's 3 messages to the brain. My eyes are closed, my breathing is deep and slow, my muscles are flaccid, is that the word? Relaxed. So how much danger could I really be in? Hey, limbic brain. Hey, amygdala. Look, my eyes are closed. My breathing. I just took several slow, deep breaths. Does that look like danger to you? And look at these muscles. And so that part of the ancient limbic lizard brain says, hey, Melinda and Michael are chill. They're fine. And not only does that reverse the anxiety and the stress, but it expands your awareness and provides insight as to what it's really about. You get these little epiphanies, these little, oh, I see what that's about. And the understanding is the antidote. The understanding changes the cycle from a downward spiral of fear promoting confusion, which promotes more fear and more ignorance and more fear, to an upward spiral of understanding promoting peace and love. Which promotes more understanding and more peace and more love. Now, it's an upward spiral. And I always say the tracks between that downward toilet flush of fear and ignorance to the upward spiral of love and understanding are relaxation and responsibility.
Michael, 3 more excellent questions waiting in the wings.
Does that help, Mindy?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Robert asked, do you think that all life forms have the same fundamental awareness, but their consciousness is defined by their level of awareness?
Oh,
and
yes.
then that's a little two-parter. Does paying attention to our intuition bypass the filters of the brain?
Ask me that second part again. Let me go to the first one. These are 2 very heavy questions, and I'm going to have to give them short shrift here, but we'll be covering this stuff. If we go with the Nisargadatta definition of awareness as capital, fundamental, absolute existence, the one thing you cannot get behind, the prime mover, the first cause, and consciousness being relative, then the consensus of thinkers in this field is that all of existence is immersed in an ocean of awareness. And so, yes, the animals and the plants and the rocks and the dirt and the sky and the rivers are all immersed in awareness. They are aware. Now, they're not, obviously, dirt and rocks and soil is not conscious or responsive to its environment or doesn't reproduce itself the way so-called organic life does. But inorganic life is still life in that we are of that stuff, obviously. We are of the clay, but we're animated by something more. Nevertheless, it makes no sense that there would not be continuity in this sense. So, just as a plant is conscious, responds to its environment, reproduces, it's not as aware as an animal. Some animals are more aware than other animals. Humans are, generally speaking, not all humans, not all the time, but generally we're more aware than animals or plants. And some say there is an emergence at hand of a new kingdom of human beings evolving out of Homo sapien, the kingdom of conscious souls. So there'd be the elemental kingdom, the plant vegetable kingdom, the animal kingdom, the human kingdom, and then above that, emerging now, in the next few hundred or thousand years, if we live that long, a kingdom of conscious souls. And the delineation there is a level of awareness that transcends the separated self, where we recognize that we are divinity incarnate and we are eternal and infinite awareness. But extended into form, we suffer this delusion of being separate and alone. The second bit, what was that?
Second part is, does paying attention to our intuition bypass the filters of the brain?
I don't know how to answer that. The filters bypass the filters of the brain.
Well, it's more if I was trying to draw on, I have a sense, like if I'm in a situation and that sense that I have of what's going on can maybe go beyond, I don't really say, I'm trying to be general, but the circumstances of what's going on, that it's not, if thoughts are in tune with the world, and you had talked about through psychedelic experience, the ability, and I'm trying to be brief, but Dr. Donald Hoffman, for example, and this is kind of related, is that he talks about this thing in evolutionary game theory of fitness beats truth, and that the brain evolved not necessarily to see the world as it is, but as what it basically takes to survive. And so so we can't get so wrapped up in our myopic filters of this is the way things are. Maybe the way to bypass that is to become more in tune with our intuition. And so that's kind of where that's going.
I guess what's that I'm getting stuck in is bypassing. I would say intuition opens even further.
Got it.
Filters, creating a path of even less resistance. It opens the faucet even more. But let's revisit that as we work in practical ways on developing intuition and its relationship to inspiration and revelation and illumination.
Looking forward to it. Thank you.
I'm realizing another good thing about putting the questions in the chat is that Michael saves the chats. And so all these questions are here.
That's true.
Okay, so Jean says, Michael mentioned that the 12-minute mark for the most effective meditation session. I like to do 10 minutes to start my day, 10 minutes as a midday reset, and 10 minutes to unwind before bedtime. Wondering if the cumulative effect of the 30 minutes works since it is over the 12 minutes mark, or is it better to do at least 12 minutes each session? Thanks.
I have no idea, Gene. I would say trust your experience of it. Experiment with to see if you do get a cumulative effect from 3 meditations. I would think so. It seems reasonable. That it's sort of like my sleep pattern. If I rarely can I sleep 8 hours, but I need 8 hours of sleep. So I'll sleep 6, and because I'm retired, I have the luxury of taking a nap in the afternoon, and I figure that adds up to 8 hours, right? Roughly. So why would it not? But I don't know of any research along those lines. So experiment. One day just do, 1 week do 10-minute meditations once a day. And then another week do 3 10-minute meditations. And then another week do 1 15-minute meditation. And experiment, see if it matters. You may get as much out of 1 15-minute meditation as you're getting out of 3 10s. I don't know. And a long term also, you're changing as a result of every meditation you do wakes you up a little bit more. So it's part of your evolution, your unfoldment, to consider that every meditation adds a little more awareness and a little more benefit and insight to the experience of being alive, to who you are. There's an evolution happening there. But great question. I would say experiment with it. I just don't know of any definitive research on that.
Okay, and there is one more, but it's also from Jean. So I'm going to take the opportunity, not so much a question, but I have 3 comments I wanted to make. And 2 of them are just things that I learned from you over the years. And one thing that you said to me once was letting go is easy. It's holding on that hurts. And I've always appreciated that, you know, because I think I'm in pain because of something that I'm going to lose, but it's really the fact that I'm trying to hold on to it that's causing me difficulties. The other thing you said to me when I was about 4 years old, and I think I've aroused a bit of aggravation in some people by repeating it back to them, is that nobody can make me feel anything, right? And so when I catch myself saying, you make me feel this way, I find that it's helpful just to drop the word make and just say, I feel this way when you do this, or you say this, or this happens. And the third thing I wanted to comment on was when you were talking about welcoming things in, and it reminded me of, there's a story about the Buddha, and it came to his attention that that Mara, who's the demon god of death, I think, was coming to join him that day. And he, you know, the people around him expected him to, you know, want her not to come. And instead he welcomed her and he says, I see you, Mara, come, let's have tea. And I'm drinking from my new favorite mug, and it was handmade. And I noticed that on the bottom of it is the person who made it is Mara. So anyways, I just wanted to share those things. And I don't know if you wanted to comment or just have me go to Jean's next question.
Well, let me say that the story of Buddha welcoming Mara is in his enlightenment. Mara represents distraction, and the demons of consciousness were trying to distract Buddha with fearful threats. And when that didn't work, they sent the seductresses, beautiful women, into his imagination to tempt him to be distracted from his focus. And the way he dealt with distraction was to welcome it in rather than resist it. Resistance is holding on. When you push something away, you actually hold on to it. And that's a little counterintuitive, but with some practice, I think that'll become more clear. The tricky thing about your second point, it's true. Eleanor Roosevelt said, no one can make you feel inferior without your consent. No one can make you feel anything without you buying into it, or at the very least being confused about it. So if somebody says, Benner, you're stupid, you're a moron, how could that insult me? I mean, I don't think I'm, of superior intelligence. I don't think I'm some genius, but I also know I'm not stupid. And so I look at that person and wonder, what's your real agenda? Why are you trying to bring me down? That's sort of pathetic, and it doesn't hurt. You get bulletproof. The more you understand yourself, the less it matters what other people think or feel or say about you. But we do take the initial hit. So that's probably why it's frustrating your friends when you remind them of that, because initially, if somebody insults you or hurts you, you will take even if you're a realized Christ or Buddha, you could be saint-like and you're still, ow, that hurt, bang, and then the question is, how quickly do you recover from that? Do you take a breath and relax and reorient yourself and recognize your emotions or your response, and you can manage them and understand them. But yeah, the thing is, the amygdala wants you, or the limbic brain wants you to obsess on the stimulus. And so I always remember the proverb, well, there's a couple of things. Forget who says it now. Maybe it was Thoreau. Everybody wants to change the world. Few people think about changing themselves instead. In the East, the way that is said is to avoid injuring your feet on sticks and stones, you could cover the world with leather. It's just simpler to wear shoes. So to change the world, fix yourself. That's the most subversive, radical thing you can do to make the world the way you'd like it to be, to improve it, is to be the improvement. Gandhi said, be the change you wish to see in the world. Everything radiates out, like the drop in the pool ripples out. Work on you. If somebody's being a jerk, send them love.
Yep.
Right?
Okay, cool. And so 6-minute warning for the end of our Q&A. And the last chat that I got is from Jean, who said, I personally identify as an HSP, highly sensitive person, which can also be referred to an SPS, sensory processing sensitivity. Wondering if Michael will be covering ways to cope with this type of thing. What are some good strategies to deal/cope with negative energy, or how to protect, there's our 5-minute warning, or how to protect oneself from energy overload from so much going on in the world, war, climate crisis, destruction of other life forms, poverty, etc.
Yeah. This is a wonderful question and very rich. Answer could go on and on and on and on. The challenge is going to be to answer this concisely. We all want to be highly sensitive people. This is not a flaw, as I presume you understand. It's difficult and challenging to be a highly sensitive person in a largely insensitive world. And the strategy that most people use, whether they're highly sensitive or not, is understandably one of protection. I'm going to suggest an alternative strategy, which is surrender. You are a spiritual being of love and light, and you are made for this. You are made for this. You can go to pieces without falling apart. Welcome it in. Tell yourself, I can handle this. I am a spiritual warrior. I refuse to be afraid. In fact, I get great benefit and pleasure from looking for ways to help other people be less afraid, to take their fear away, to be like a grounding, a lightning rod, so to speak. A lightning rod is a very clever device. It's saying, how am I going to protect myself from the lightning? By attracting it and creating a path of least resistance to the ground. So be the ground of being that can absorb all of that BS, all of that negativity, all of that big bad wolf who's going to huff and puff and blow your house down, right? And look at the terrorists in the world with compassion. They are pathetic. They do horrible, cruel things. I mean, it's hard to even comprehend the evil that we're seeing out of Putin. How does he put his head on the pillow, knowing that not just the physical devastation of bombing cities, it's just incomprehensible that you would drop bombs on cities, but deliberately targeting civilians and seeing these orphans. It's just so heartbreaking. It takes my breath away. I see the little kids wandering around in their heavy winter jackets because their moms and dads are dead and there's no one, no family, no one to take care of them. And this is what Putin wants. How do you account for evil on that level? And certainly it's not limited to Putin. We did the same thing in Iraq, but news people didn't interview the victims. So we don't understand that, American forces did exactly the same thing. So that doesn't make us the good guys, and Russians are not the bad guys, but individual humans are capable of just unspeakable things. But it's because they're afraid. It's because they're ignorant. And you can't let them frighten you. You have to stand up in the face of that and say, I am a highly sensitive person. Give me your best shot. I can take it. I refuse to be afraid of you. You disgusting and pathetic bag of fear and ignorance. May all of that burn in hell, for the essence will survive. Nothing burns in hell that's real. So we can take it. We can handle it. Just be the lightning rod. That's the best allegory I can give you in a concise answer. And if it hurts, welcome the hurt. And it diminishes. It's how I control, or anyone uses hypnosis, controls pain at the dentist. You welcome in the pain. You embrace it. If it hurts, you relax and surrender to it. If you tighten against it, the pain goes higher. It's trying to communicate to you. It wants to get through. If you acknowledge the pain, damn, that hurt, and relax in response to it, it mitigates the pain. It goes away. It fades. So I know that's real. Talk about counterintuitive. That's about as backward as one could imagine it being, but that's my best answer, my best short answer.
Michael, it's 12:30. I love you guys. I'm going to sign off. Have a great one.
Thanks, Anna.
Bye.
Again, would you guys let me know at awmysteryschool@gmail.com if any one of you are able to co-host on Hannah's behalf next week, and quite possibly the week after that, but it really helps me. I am very vision impaired, as some of you know, and it's really hard for me to handle all this stuff alone. So it's easy, and doesn't have to be perfect, but if you could help out, if you're willing to give it a go, just shoot me an email at that address, awmysteryschool@gmail.com. And gosh, thanks so much for joining us. Invite your like-minded friends. At this point, I'd like to grow this class. And have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful week. Be sure to do your meditation. Peace and love to everyone. Namaste. And we'll see you next Sunday. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Love you.
Michael.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Michael.
So long, everybody.
Michael, can you still hear me?
I can.
I don't know if you got my email.